let's stand and say the pledge of allegiance, and then we'll take a moment of silence to regroup our brains, and we will dig right in. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent recording.
Okay, I'm gonna, let's start the meeting by amending the agenda. Do I hear any motion to amend the? Would like to, just expand the agenda under new business. Our first discussion item is conversations with our representatives, and I want to add also our senators to this,
Wonderful.
to this,
Absolutely.
this list, so that's an amendment I would like. I'm gonna make a motion. Do we? to do
I'll second that.
Okay,
I'll do it first. I'll make a motion.
you might, okay. All right, any discussion about it before we vote? Okay. What do you vote?
Aye.
Okay, I vote aye.
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 Okay. Any other amendments to the agenda? Okay.
No.
Let's look at the previous minutes. We have two separate minutes. One was a last minute emergency meeting and one was our regular meeting on July 24.
Make a motion to approve both minutes.
I'll second.
Discussion? No discussion. All right, let's take a vote.
I wasn't at one of the meetings, so I'll have to abstain. I can approve the one that I sat at, but I wasn't at the emergency meeting, so I have to abstain from that.
So then why don't we vote for the emergency meeting first? Okay.
We got enough here that we can approve both of them.
Okay,
There's three of us.
just, okay. Okay, let's take a vote then.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Same thing. Next is time for public comments not on the agenda, and you have 3 minutes if you have a comment. I'm looking for a concise statement of the question of concern, and then 3 minutes for supporting statements. Does anyone have a public comment for items not on the agenda? Yes.
Hello, I'm Dave Taft, lifelong Windsor resident. I'd like to mention, I'm sure most people know, but the loss of a community servant, the passing of Jill Lord in the most recent last week. And before Tom and all of you, Jill was out there in the front lines doing a lot of things, everything from Windsor on Air to the Welcome Center, the Resource Center. Veggie Bingo, the skate park, to name a few. And it wasn't always easy. I know I've been on a lot of committees and on a lot of projects with her, and she was a wonderful human being, and it'll be impossible to ever replace her. And I'm sure she touched all of our lives, even if you didn't know it. So it's a sad loss for Windsor. And the other thing I'd like to say is I'd like to thank the rec department for keeping some of the swimming area open. I've been fighting with town managers and Harry Ledoux and a lot of people for a lot of years to try to keep it open till Labor Day, and there's a piece of it there. So thank you very much. I see people swimming and enjoying it as recently as today.
Yep.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
Any other public comment for items not on the agenda? Yes.
I have to sit up here.
And call your name.
My name is Mike Powell, and I'm not really sure. I didn't get a copy of the agenda. But first of all, I'd like to thank Paul for putting this meeting at the last minute out, that representatives are going to be here, so we'd understand. And secondly, I guess if the town could update their webpage, Because like the webpage had the meeting for Tuesday. So it's kind of a last minute thing for people like myself that are busy, and there's a lot of concerns that I know as far as what's going on right now with the taxes, what people can afford, what's gonna happen with the fuel crisis. So if there was a website or somewhere that could be more consolidated, geared towards the taxpayers, so we're more informed, because I know right now the state of Vermont, we're in trouble. If all this stuff goes through, we're in trouble. We're in deep doo-doo. I realize you guys don't really have much control of school stuff. But I know the state does, our representatives, which I don't believe they're actually up there for us, they're up there for them, doubling their wages. And increasing everything where we just cannot afford anymore. I'm retired, Social Security, of the town of Windsor, love to stay here, but my taxes went up $1,250. I cannot come up with $1,250 like that overnight. And I take my hat off to what you guys are doing, but what the state is doing, I think we're in serious trouble. And if the town could be notified in more advance, I think more people would maybe.
That's a screw up on our end. We had changed from Tuesdays last year and we went to Wednesdays, and it sounds like it probably didn't get put in our website.
Yeah.
Updated properly. So Tom, can we work on that?
Tom?
If you can send me where you found that, if I share my screen, that's the select board page. If you can see that, and it says on there that they meet on the second and fourth Wednesdays.
Is it on the town calendar? Where'd you see it, Mike? Do you
My
know?
wife pulled it up today on the webpage.
Okay.
And then Paul put a notice out on Facebook today, which was greatly appreciated.
Yep. You're welcome.
That some representatives are going to be here from the state of Vermont. And I think those are the people that we got to address.
Just the homepage, I don't know if I'm still sharing, has a community calendar, and it has not just the select board, but other town events and other board meetings. And that's on the homepage.
Thank you.
Yep.
And it's posted in 3 other places in town, the agenda. Here at the town office, the library, and the post office. Am I right, Tom?
Oh, yeah, I realize it's posted, but we don't always get there. You know,
Yeah, it's hard to make it. It's hard to make it. I know.
The easiest thing is that community calendar. Once the agenda goes up and all the supporting documents, they can be accessed through a hyperlink on that calendar.
I think too that we should all do a better job of sharing it on our own. I mean, I know.
I don't have a select board page, but I'll create one without.
Oh, but you got,
something to keep it more simple for people. I mean, a lot of people don't have that.
Town crier, me.
we got that.
Okay, Paul?
Thank you. And I'd like to let you know, Mike, also something that we're working on is to, prior to legislation coming out, and it's in the birth of legislation that we requested that we'd be sitting with our representatives, senators and representatives to get insight on what's coming up, and then discussion we made. We can keep you informed a little bit more as things are starting to develop. I believe, things developed this year pretty fast without, getting the proper information to our community. So community can say, hey, I love it, or I don't, to communicate with the representatives, to give a direct information to our representatives to base their decisions. So we're working on that we can meet with our representatives and senators to try to get information to you on an earlier stage prior to, a couple of weeks or a month prior to voting. So we're working on that. We'll keep you informed.
That is greatly appreciated. How many representatives do we have here tonight?
2 representatives and 2 senators.
Senators.
And they're here in an attempt to do what you're asking us to do. We, as a board, agreed a few months ago to try to make this relationship more involved and more accessible for the community. So that's the whole point of us inviting them.
I think that is a great idea, and I really appreciate you guys doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Any other public comments for items not on the agenda? Okay, we're gonna start our new business. And it is with our representatives and our senators, and I would love for you guys, I don't, there's four of you, if you wanna sit up here so you can be in the camera. Tom, what do you think? Let's get on front of the camera. For this.
The mic is the important thing.
The mic is in. Yeah. Can you tell us where to go? I would say come up here.
Why don't we, I'll slide over to the select board over there. I'm not sitting over there.
Be right over.
Get moved.
Yeah. Brown.
Because the camera actually does.
We can move
I
it.
think my,
Just that.
Chromebook.
Hello.
Yeah, John, thanks.
Hi, Tom.
I don't know.
Happy holiday. Oh, you look so different.
So I just kind of like to start this interaction just by asking you guys, if you could just tell us what you're working on, what you're excited about, what we can start thinking about as we go through that. How about that? And then we'll have some questions after.
Can we just go down and introduce ourselves?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you for inviting us. It's great to be here, and we're actually always willing to come if invited, because we represent 25 towns, the senators do, and when we're asked to come, we tend to show up. I'm Allison Clarkson. I am a majority leader in the Senate, along with Becca White and Dick McCormick. We serve the Windsor district, which goes from Thetford down to Springfield, Ludlow, and Weston, you know, all the way east to the river. We're the largest county in the state, as you probably know, 977 square miles, 25 towns in our district. And so I serve you as the majority leader in the Senate. I also serve you as vice chair of Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs, and on government operations.
Sure. And Allison has been your senator for a bit of time, but I'm your newest senator. So if you haven't met me before, my name's Becca White. I'm from Hartford, Vermont. So, you know, I am a Go Hurricanes gal, so I apologize. But I served on my select board for 4 years before I ran for state representative, where I represent Hartford. And this is my first term. I serve in the morning on the Natural Resources and Energy Committee and the afternoon Government Operations. We will not potentially all be on the same committees next session. So we don't really know what our topic areas will be. So I really appreciate the question about what are we gearing up for? Well, we don't know if we're going to be reelected. We also don't have staff. So we don't really, I work another job. I cashier. I work at the Upper Valley Food Co-op, which is the little red co-op, if you know that one, best produce. So we don't actually, we're not like formulating ideas actively with our legal counsel at the moment, but we're happy to talk like big picture. What are we hoping to work on? We also work for about 4 months out of the year full time as your legislators. So right now we don't have any kind of immediate bulletin things that you need to respond to. But during that time is when it's very helpful to get feedback when people are if you're keeping track of it, which can even be hard for us at times. So I do just want to note that once we get into the legislative session, whoever your senators and representatives are, it would be another great opportunity to reconnect and start those conversations again. But we can have conversations about what you want to see next year too. Because that's our job. More taxes?
Or
That's I didn't quite hear. Yeah, that seems like.
But I just wanted to say, Tom Marsh and the select board are kept pretty up to date by the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, which we all as towns, all our towns pay into, and they give us great service, and they are your great advocates in the State House. They are dogged about municipal issues, as Tom knows.
Yeah.
And I think you're kept pretty up to date by Tom and you all get the LCP stuff. So.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Burrows. I represent you on the representative side, the House of Representatives side, and I represent along with John Windsor 1, which is Heartland, West Windsor, and Windsor alphabetically, which is how we always do it. And I serve on the General and Housing Committee, and the housing being obvious what that is, but the general part of that includes labor relations, and it's kind of a catch-all for a lot of different stuff, but we do labor relations, we do some kind of social justice, I guess, for lack of a better term, work. And then we have the miscellaneous, it's the ADHD committee, we call it. Because we might work on 10 completely disparate subject matters at once that don't fall into any other category. Or not at once, but I do have some things that I'm working on now for the next session,
yeah.
because John and I are unopposed in the general, and so we know we're going to be serving you next year. And so I can speak to those as well as whatever questions you have. And what else? I've served you for 2 terms so far, 2-year terms so far. And that's it, right? I think. Oh, I also, for full disclosure, I also serve on the Mount Escutney School Board. And so while I serve on general and housing, I also try really hard to be involved in matters concerning education, but I'm also really glad that I don't serve on the education committee.
And I'm John Bartholomew, the last of the 5.
Yeah.
Dick is, you said he was retiring, I think.
Yes, you're missing a third senator, Senator Dick McCormick.
So we're gonna at least have one new face at the next election. And of course, there is an election coming up. We don't know for sure what's going to happen, although as Elizabeth said, our chances of being reelected are pretty good. We're optimistically hopeful here. In any case, I've been a legislator for a long time. I really appreciate doing it. I feel like a public servant. I've been doing public service stuff all my life, including serving in the U.S. Public Health Service and the military. And in the legislature for quite a few terms, I was on the Agriculture Committee. And the last 2 terms, I've been on the Transportation Committee, doing good work. And Becca mentioned we have a 4-month session. So I think people realize we are not in session and don't expect to be in session until the new biennium. So it'll be a new legislature at that point. Any bills that you might be concerned about that haven't been passed into law will be dead at the beginning of this. So to take action on them, the legislature, someone would have to reintroduce them. So that's just kind of filling in the blanks, but you've covered a lot. So.
And he's your parliamentarian, so if you ever,
Yes.
yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I have an important role I'm a job with the caucus. I'm on the rules committee, so it kind of determines how the House operates.
Yeah, keeping decorum.
Can you just explain real quick to folks what you mean by biennium and what that means? We have the election every 2 years. The president is every 4 years, of course, but the governor all the way down, sheriff doesn't have this problem, I think. Oh, thank God. All the senators, the governor, lieutenant governor, auditor, treasurer, secretary of state, all the senators, every 2 years we are reelected or a new biennium starts. And officially that's a new legislative session. And this is the 2nd year ending of the biennium. So the new biennium begins when the legislature comes into session in early January, like first week of January. And then we completely start over. Any bills that were active before would need to be reintroduced before we could do any action. And then keep in mind, when a bill is introduced, it gets sent to the appropriate committee where it gets intense scrutiny and review in both chambers before it would get passed into law and then are sent on to the governor to be passed into law.
And a point about bienniums, if let's say now that we're just trying to kind of reform this relationship and developing legislation, it doesn't just have to happen in 1 year. So if we want to work on something collectively, we can also look at it over that 2 years versus 1 year. So I know sometimes the gears can move a little slower, so don't worry if you think of an idea over the next many months. You can still come to us. It's not the end of the legislative period for those
Important
bills.
point. We do have regulations, rules in both the House and the Senate for when we may introduce bills. And once we pass those deadlines, it would be
Yeah.
difficult to introduce a bill and get it through. So if there's an issue of concern, something you'd like to see us introduce on behalf of the town of Windsor, let us know soon, because we need, before the biennium starts, we need to get those bills started so that they hit the walls early.
Like a charter change or something too.
Well, like.
Charter changes are an exception. They can come anytime, but,
Yeah.
in terms of things that might affect Windsor where you'd like to see a change in statute, we need to get started.
In general, we start the first Tuesday in January, and then we have a week off over town meeting week. And policy committees, non-money committees, have to get all of their bills the week before or sometimes after.
Sometime around
This-
town meeting.
Sometime around town meeting day is the deadline. So
There's no
This year it was
fixed, no,
after.
it's no
It's
fixed
not
rule.
fixed.
So yeah.
and then money bills or money committees have an extra week to get their bills through. But it's right around town meeting day when we really have to be finished with real big bills. But we can also do short bills after that.
You're finished with them to send them to us.
To send them to you.
It's called cross.
Where then
Very easy
where
to
it then gets
follow.
looked
So the
at by
Senate has to be finished with their bills and send them to the House, so the House has time.
They
to
don't
act
have
on
the
them,
same
and
deadlines
vice
as we
versa.
do.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, sorry.
do?
There's actually a great explanation of the legislative process. And if anyone has questions about the legislative process, I would say all of us are very in favor of civics education. And there's some great resources. If it would be helpful for us to share those with you, I'll be biased in my love of the Freedom and Unity comic, which was developed at the Cartoon Center in Hartford. And it is a really fabulous, and it explains it because it is complex. And yeah, so, and they're great for all ages. So we're happy to talk those out.
So let me ask another important question. What's the best way to reach you guys?
Our legislative email, it's
Okay.
easy to get. It's, Tom has it, but they're on the legislative website.
Yes.
So the legislative website is actually a great place for you to review the bills that each of us have individually introduced, but also what bills in your subject area. And never before, I mean, one of the gifts of COVID is that now every committee meeting is on YouTube.
Yeah.
You can watch all our debates and discussions on an issue you care about. Whether it's housing, whether it's foster
Live.
rights.
Yeah, live.
Live, and you can watch it live,
Yeah.
and in real time, you can be emailing and texting us
Yes.
about how you feel about
Yeah,
the direction the committee's
yes.
going.
You can call.
I've done that
You
before.
can even call like the State House and have them send a note. Like if you don't like to use an iPhone or be online, you can actually just call and say, send Senator White a note, send Senator Clarkson a note. And then a page, which you have had a very wonderful crop of pages that have come from
Yeah.
Windsor, a young person in a green jacket will come over and give us the note. So if there's something that you're seeing, we're very accessible. I do just want to put a note in. I think I work full-time outside the legislative session, and I know that there was concern about the pay of legislators and the idea of us doubling our pay. I'll just say that the $13,000 that we make over 4 months is a significant financial loss for my family and I. Unfortunately, I am not available. I don't work enough hours because of that 4-month gap to qualify for health insurance at either of my 2 jobs. So I rely on the fact that I'm married and have access to health insurance to be able to be a legislator. And that means that the average person who is working, who's not independently wealthy or retired, typically can't run for office at that level. So that disqualifies most people my age. I'm 30. It disqualifies most parents, and it disqualifies people who work a traditional 9 to 5. So the goal of that legislation was not to increase our salaries to an extreme amount. It was to get us to a place where it wasn't such a financial loss that it's impossible to fill those positions. And that was something we considered as a body and was vetoed and did not happen. So I still make $13,000 for 4 months of work. We still are unpaid. And anytime we go to an event or meeting, which can be up to 40 hours a week of trying to make sure we're responding to people, and we don't have staff or offices. So I understand that it's difficult when you feel like you're not being heard, but I'll tell you, it's not purposeful. It's because unfortunately the system we've designed has made it hard for us to be as responsive as we might want. But our main job can actually be to break down some of the barriers to government. So if you don't feel like you're being heard from the Department of Agriculture, or for me, transportation is a big one. We're happy to ping people, like that's where we can be really effective. But I did just want to put that out there, that, and I totally respect your concern around our pay. But frankly,
And the timeframe.
it's very hard to recruit anyone to run for these offices.
And
Anyone.
the bill had it taking effect 5 years from now, so it wouldn't even be us.
Yeah, we
that
wouldn't.
It would be two legislators from now that would see the benefit of an actual
Well,
salary.
and just you mentioned 4.5 months, that's the only time we're paid. I mean, we're only paid when we're at the State House working in committee. So all of our constituent work is unpaid.
Yeah.
All of the work we do off session is unpaid. So just,
But you should run for office.
I think the point, though, the important point here is we're trying to balance the issue of how much, not trying to give ourselves pay raises, but at the same time, trying to make the job accessible to real Vermonters. We don't
Yeah,
want just.
We're not well represented with,
We don't want just wealthy people,
Yeah.
we're retired people.
retired people.
or people who can't do it for
Um,
more than a couple of
And right
terms
now,
because,
that's the reality.
yeah.
So
But I don't know that we really answered your question.
Yeah, we'll
And
get
that
those
is,
too.
the website is really good. We can find us easily in the website. Or the legislative email, each legislator has a legislative email address, and it's just the first letter of our first name and our last name. So I would be J Bartholomew, and everyone is at leg.state.vt.us. So you can find any of us that way. And hopefully everyone on the select board has our phone numbers to reach us directly. Those aren't posted on the website anymore, but
But some of us are still on the phone book.
yes. What's that?
So I'd like to have time for questions later. So is there any, but do you guys want to present something new and exciting that you want us to know about?
I think there are things that
There
we're,
are,
that,
but-
that for next session, we definitely need, or we know we're going to be working on. And one of the things Tom and I've already talked about, and Tom Kennedy, I know we're all very interested in resolving and moving forward on the Windsor site, the Windsor prison site. And we've had, this has been an extreme frustration for all of us who care about Windsor, creating an economic engine out of that site. So I do know we're going to meet in the next little bit, hopefully, and come up with a proposal that we can both introduce in the House and the Senate.
Yeah.
So if we can at least get it on the table and move forward on that, because it's just, the state is treading water on it, and it's a waste of time for everybody. It's really
And
frustrating.
money.
Yeah.
It's a waste of money. It's a huge waste of
Yeah,
money.
it's a
All
huge
our
waste of money.
taxpayer money. Housing, we're going to continue to work on housing. We've done a huge amount on housing. We've invested, over the COVID years, we've invested over $500 million in supportive housing, mixed use housing, all sorts of housing. You're seeing some of the benefits of that here in Windsor. We're going to continue to work on reducing the barriers to housing development here
Yeah,
in
you guys-
Vermont, and in making zoning more accessible, and in creating more infill, and really creating our driving development into our downtowns and
Yes.
village centers where we have water and sewer.
Like
Uh,
you downtown. where-
Yes. Healthcare, and a critically important issue for Windsor is healthcare. We have to keep this hospital. This is one of the hospitals that operates in the black out of the 14 hospital. They're only like 3 or 4 that are operating in the black. Thank goodness Mount Scottney is one of them. It's so well managed, but healthcare financing is really challenging. This year, we're going to be looking at that. We had a study this summer, you know about this. We've had a study this summer that I hope some of you, saw some of you at the meeting at the Windsor Center that the
Yeah.
Mount Scottney Hospital hosted with the Green Mountain Care Board. that is one of the key issues we're going to be working on this year is this sustainable financing of hospitals. So those are some of the big issues I know that affect Windsor and are critically important to Windsor that we are going to be front and center. That, and of course, education. And Elizabeth can speak the most to education, but I would say that this is completely unsustainable where we ended up with this year. This was not a choice. We had I have an article here for you to explain the confluence of chaos and challenges that the cost confluence that hit us in the perfect storm of inflation this year. Yeah, absolutely. You can pass that around.
You're talking about the 19% tax increase that we got, right?
Well, each town is different.
I know.
And that was what's so weird. And it totally depends on when you were reevaluated and where your CLA is. And there are many factors to it, all unsustainable. I mean, so we created the Commission on the Future of Education. We are looking deeply, even if the commission isn't, we are as legislators looking deeply into what is included in the education fund. We're still paying for current use out of the education fund. Is that appropriate? We're still paying for tax increment financing out of the ed fund. Because these are all old property issues, we're still paying for that out of the ed fund. I don't think that belongs still in the ed fund. Seasonal residents are driving the cost of the housing as our values increase and seasonal residents move in and drive many full-time residents out. That is driving our tax rate because they're willing to pay a lot more for houses and our housing values are skyrocketing. I live in Woodstock. We are now over 50% owned by seasonal residents. That is driving our tax rate big time. And so we're going to be looking at all those kinds of issues. So education, funding, and education itself, top, front and center.
Right.
Well, those are kind of the key big issues that you all know because you know that those are going to be the issues. But for Windsor in particular, those are the issues. Those I think are some of the key issues. And then you guys have more.
Yeah, and then I know that there has been conversation about the clean heat standard or the Affordable Heat Act, and I think it was mentioned increased fuel prices earlier.
Touching on that.
Okay, I'll wait then, whatever time you'd like
You
me to
can,
talk about.
no, you can absolutely talk about it. I just, whatever you want to do, because
Talk about it now because it's one of the things we're going to get a report on.
That's questions
we
now
will be discussing.
about the subject as we bring it up.
One second.
Sure, yeah, definitely. But I'm happy to talk a little bit about it unless there was something. Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, serve on the Natural Resources and Energy Committee in the morning. So we are the committee that looks out for utilities and how we use energy as a state. So we reviewed the Clean Heat Standard, now known kind of colloquially as the Affordable Heat Act. And the concept behind the bill is that we have Global Warming Solutions Act requirements that we have to meet to reduce our carbon emissions. Yes. So we passed a bill a few years ago to help us meet targets to reduce our carbon in accordance with the Paris Climate Accords and science and data that we were able to get that shows where we need to meet to reduce our carbon to get to a place where we are not contributing to climate change at the rate we are. So we have these requirements and it breaks it out into sectors, including transportation, electric, and thermal. Thermal is how we heat and cool our homes and businesses. So we have within the Climate Action Plan, which everyone is welcome to read. It is it's a pretty big book, and it was created by the Climate Council, which was a nonpartisan appointed body that comprised of pretty much everyone on the spectrum of this conversation, from stakeholder groups of utilities to fossil fuel dealers to the average person who might be interested in the topic and have a perspective. All of that was taken into account to come up with this plan. And what we realized was that we need to reduce how much fossil fuel we're using to heat and cool our homes. And even if we don't morally feel, let's say you're like, I don't know about global warming. I'm not sure if it's something that I should be as concerned about. I don't really care that you passed this bill. What we know is that fossil fuel prices are extremely erratic and they continue to go up and up and up. And the cost is not something that anyone in this room can control unless you are a part of OPEC And you probably wouldn't be at a Windsor Select Board meeting if that was the case. We as a state don't have fossil fuels. So we're just not going to drill for oil anytime soon. So we are very dependent on this market that we can't control. So we also need to reduce our fuel usage to be more energy independent, so we're not experiencing those rising costs. If you're like my family, fuel poverty was a major inflection point. When we couldn't heat our home, my dad would take a gas can up to the Cumberland Farms, and then he would come back and fill up our house so we could have heat for a few hours. So I completely understand the concept of fuel poverty, and it's only going to get worse in our state. And if we want to cost contain the increase of fuel, which will affect each of us, whether or not we're on propane or not, because we help fund incredible programs like LIHEAP, which support low-income folks not freezing to death in their homes. If we want to continue those programs and pay for those, we need to start weaning people off of fossil fuels. And the best way to do that is to work with our fuel utilities and to work with our distributors. So we have fossil fuel distributors, some in state, we have 2 in state, but then most of them are actually out of state and in Canada. We don't have a lot of depots. What this bill does is it regulates those depots as a part of a credit market where they actually trade the benefit and incentive of weatherizing someone's home or installing a heat pump or getting them onto wood or wood pellets or towards a biofuel like if you're familiar with like blended fuel oils. It's that kind of thing. They can get credit for doing that for a customer. So that means they're going to want to incentivize you to do it because it gives them credit. And then they have to trade on an open market. So it's market-based and it's over time. So it's not like an immediate one day, everything changes kind of thing. And it's very similar to what we do in our electric sector. And it's why Vermont has the lowest and most stable electric rates in New England. So I'll just wrap by saying we are studying that concept. It is a very complex topic. And I have some handouts on what the Affordable Act does. And I did bring the bill itself because every now and again, I have someone tell me there's something in this bill like a carbon tax. And I go, you know what? I don't remember reading that. So I like to flip through it every now and again just to make sure that I didn't misread it. But let me just end by saying that we also didn't pass it as it's not happening. Like we didn't pass it to begin. Like that concept hasn't started. We are studying it, and it's not, it wouldn't happen unless a whole nother bill was written. So the study itself, we've been getting information like, does this concept actually work? Would this actually lower fuel usage and save us money as a state? Or would it jack up fuel rates? Because I personally can't support a large fuel cost increase. That's just not going to work for me or my family. And it's not going to work for everyone in Windsor County. So we're getting that information before we're making a decision. So there's nothing that's happening right away. And there's nothing that I know any of your elected officials would do that would cause kind of the scary fear mongering I've heard of us raising it like 70 cents. Or I even had someone come up to me yesterday, or like a while ago, and say, you're right now raising my fuel bill by $3.20 a gallon. And I said, who told you that? Because they're not telling you the truth. It hasn't passed, it hasn't become something. So the idea that it's raising your fuel bill now should be a red herring. And I'll just say that. So we also have a lot of work that we need to do around this topic. So if you want to be a part of the conversation, because we don't know if it's the right strategy, that's why we're studying it. So we'd love to include you as we talk about it and see that we're going in the right direction. So
could I open the floor to comments? Because I know you guys are here tonight because you have questions, I'm assuming, or comments. So I would like right now, for this particular topic, to see if there's anyone who has a question or wants to express something about the topic that Becca has just shared with us. So I'm looking to you guys. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to that?
About tax, we can get legal part.
We're talking about the fuel,
Affordable Act.
bingo, yeah.
there you go. That's the words. Yes. Oh, that's gotta be in. Okay.
It's one of my main concerns is,
Could you come up here so we can get you on the camera and the speak, mic?
Yeah, it's all good.
I guess one of my main concerns is, I understand what what you're saying
Yes.
about all this. But what happens is, it happens so fast, we don't know about it, and then the next thing you know, we got it. How can that process be eliminated? I mean, it's like this 20%, all of a sudden our tax is now up 20%. This just happened overnight. I mean, we got reappraised. I don't understand how this can happen so
Yeah.
quick.
It's okay. You're welcome to.
I would
And
say
I know
that-
January 25 has got something to do with this carbon.
I'm not familiar with
tax.
we have a report that's
Yeah, we have a
due
report.
mid-January, but I think it's January 15th.
Well, whatever, but it's 25 and it's coming up.
Yes, that would be where the Public Utilities Commission, it doesn't do anything. It's like, we ask them to tell us, how's it going? So we'll find out. And it's actually will be a public document so everyone can read it. And they've actually done 2 reports, and a draft. They've done 1 report and a draft report. So folks can also read those now.
So
But I think
what
you're
can we
thinking,
do?
I think you
What
might
can we
be,
do to, I mean, as a taxpayer, what can we do to support you people not to have our fuel prices increase? Our county commission, this is a little state of Vermont. We're not making a big difference in this world.
oh, okay.
So what can we do to support not having any increase in our oil? I pay $3.50 a gallon. I burn 700 gallons of oil.
Yeah,
And I'm
fuel is
retired.
expensive.
My
Yeah.
wife's retired.
Yes.
But what can we do from the outside world to eliminate this or at least slow this?
You don't, I'll just say, I think one of the conversation points we're having now is it started with you describing, I think, what's the property tax and the reevaluation of properties. That's slightly different from the Affordable Heat Act.
I understand.
But I think what I'm hearing you is rising costs are not working for you. And they aren't working for Vermonters. So when you're then asking, how do I get involved to make sure that rising costs don't continue to affect me and my family? You should know that, one, we're definitely the group that cares about that. I personally grew up in a low-income household, and I'm very concerned about rising costs. But what scares me more than rising costs now is bigger rising costs that are unpreventable. And that is yes, and uncontrollable if we don't have a plan in place to start to reduce our energy. So when I think about your propane bill being so expensive, what I say is, have you weatherized your house? Have you thought about switching to a heat pump, which is an electric? And that's the issue. That's the issue.
Check my oil tab.
Yes. And that's the issue, is the average Vermonter can't afford it. Yes. So that's what the program does, is the goal of the program is to give you an incentive to get those things so that you can get off of fossil fuels.
I can't get those things because my wife and I are at this income bracket.
Yes, and because there's no program that exists to help fund you getting that money to transition. We have this for our electric sector. You got LED light bulbs, I'm sure, like my family, to help lower our electric costs. We have all sorts of programs to help us, but they don't exist for getting off of heating fuel that's so expensive. So the clean heat standard would cost the people who are depots, the manufacturers who make money off of the fossil fuel, to help transition you, the customer who is currently trapped in either having a propane or gas boiler, towards getting you away from that, so that cost isn't being experienced.
That will.
That's the whole point, and we need to do it.
Not happen in Vermont.
Okay,
we gotta have-
I mean, so we'll
we
find
gotta
out.
have-
We're studying it. You're right. I hope we can. I hope we can do that.
If I was on a low income, if I didn't have a job or welfare, all this stuff would be accessible to me. I could do it. But with our incomes that we have, I can't do it.
You're at the benefits cliff. Okay.
And
Yeah.
I think the majority of the people that are here working, that have worked so hard all their lives to have what they've got, cannot afford to put in a new boiler, cannot geothermal, cannot do this stuff to the house. There is just no way that we can afford to do that.
Yes, and we hear you. And
Yeah.
our objective is to take time to transition slowly, thoughtfully, and affordably.
Yeah.
So if we can't do that,
We won't.
we won't be doing it. But we have to do it because we have to be able to wean ourselves off what's killing us, what's destroying the Vermont we
It
care
is
about.
not destroying us.
Well, there we.
We have a
disagree.
difference in that, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But but I love your point. You make a good point. And we need to have you come and testify or share that opinion everyone can submit testimony.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's, yeah.
Vermont is number one in the nation for the lowest carbon output in the entire nation right now. United States of America.
That is
We're at-
not
Yep,
incorrect.
I just read that, and if you guys want to joke about what we read and what you diagnose and what you look at, I'm trying
I
to give
hear
you point blank when I'm saying it, then please show me something that can confirm that I'm wrong. But I looked it up and it was very simple. We are number one. Right now we're at like 0.025 to 0.03 in our carbon emissions right now. Okay, and 4 is just your average outside. So we're doing better. We're doing good right now. We're pretty much net zero as we stand right now with what we're putting out, what we're bringing in. Mr. Bartholomew, you mentioned that the reason why we had to be so aggressive with this, with Act 289, this is something I would couple with this was because, you said if we did this in the 70s, we wouldn't have to be doing this right now. That was at the last meeting because we weren't good. So now we have to take it on the chin. But in the 70s, we were burning 170 million gallons of fuel in the 70s in the state of Vermont. As of last year, we burned 70 million gallons of fuel in the state of Vermont from efficiency, and we have more homes. So what has occurred from them when the boiler was 80% efficient, right now we're running at 98% efficient. If you get a Renai, you run a Renai at your house, you are blowing off steam. There is steam that's coming out. So the propane is absolutely clean. So what we're talking about right now is with this reduction, I think Vermont, we are at where we are. I don't know how much lower we can go because even if we zero out every single car and zero out the plants, it's just not going to change the quality of what I'm talking about with percentage of carbon in the air. It's not going to do anything. We're at where we got to be. So coupled with that, stating on that was, well, I'm talking about Act 289, which I'm coupling with the clean heat standard. We talked about 289 before, and I said to you both, I said, listen, we can't afford it. That is the bill that we said with the electric company, you can start off at a lower percentage. The next 10 years, we're going to be funding this electric plant to reduce their carbon. Our percentage that was in the bill that you signed is up to 13% each year, compounded each year for the next 10 years. That's a lot of money for electric. So if we're saying we have to get away from fossil fuels to save on electricity, everyone's electrical bills by the time of 10 years is going to be pretty much tripled. And the instability of the oil market, we mentioned OPEC. I haven't heard the term OPEC for 4 years, but now we hear it because unfortunately, the United States of America said that we're not going to produce fuel in the country. And now we're buying it from Venezuela. So instability comes from where we have to purchase it from. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, well, we can't.
No, that's my opinion. But now, if we get into the bill that we're discussing right now, first of all, I didn't have the right information. This January is when you folks were going to make a decision if we're going to move forward with the Clean Heat Act. That might be incorrect.
Yeah, well, I've heard people say like we have a mandatory vote.
No, I heard this
We don't
January.
We
is
don't
when
do
this-
mandatory.
Okay,
votes.
but-
Like, there's no, like, just like you can't.
Understandable.
Yeah, so we don't have that.
Understandable.
Good
But
point.
let's look at, as we look into it and coupled with H 289. I did read the study with H 289 and it was from the company out of Brattleboro. And they said, these will be the effects of H 289. And I shared it. The effects will be, and it said point blank, macro businesses will close with this bill, which means when macro businesses close, you have unemployment that rises in the town. When a business closes in the town, then your taxes go up because you have to make up for the grand list. That's number one. Number two is inflation will occur. When this happens, when you raise the cost of businesses, inflation will occur within the state. And that is a given. That's 100% that will happen within Vermont. And it also stated that folks on fixed income and low income are gonna take the brunt of it most directly. It's gonna be more difficult for them the most because it's gonna be practically unaffordable to them to do this, which then results of people are gonna have to move out of Vermont, unfortunately. And that's what's occurring, is people looking at what's the cost of coming with the taxes. I guess nothing much to do with it, with state, the school taxes, but what we're voting on, I said, please pump the brakes, and we didn't. We're moving forward with it. And that's not fair to my constituents at all, because they cannot afford it. We have folks like Mike that's doing the best he can, and he's gonna be basically at the point of having to leave the town, the greatest town in Vermont, and move out because he can't afford to live within what's happening of the state of Vermont, of us getting pretty much cost out of the state is what's happening. And that's scary. I even mentioned that. I said, people are gonna have to move, and I got a shoulder shrug, and that's not fair. Now, if we want to talk about 50% of houses in Woodstock right now, and that's what is crushing the taxes in Woodstock. Yeah. As people move out of Windsor, which is gonna happen, no one's gonna be able to afford to purchase someone's house. Who's gonna end up buying a house? It's gonna be out of state for your Airbnb, BlackRock, and everyone else. Now, our homes will start rolling into the same thing as Woodstock with Airbnbs. And that's gonna be a collapse of our economy. So that is why it's so important to keep people in their houses and not charge them out of the houses. Now, with this act right here, after speaking with the fuel carrier, part of it was point blank was a study, and it was directed from that estimates come from Julie Moore, Vermont Secretary of Agency and Natural Resources. Another analysis comes from a consulting firm, NV5, which we paid for to come up with these numbers, and the numbers came up, and the numbers were 70 cents a gallon, which will be passed on to the consumer. Okay.
That was something she did in committee, very top of the head.
But that's a number. No, but that's, no. This was at least it's something. At least it's something. I mean, something that is,
Well, that would be very concerning.
Well, no, it is. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I understand.
Thank you very much, because I spoke with a fuel carrier and I said, this isn't gonna happen. It's about the people that are loading the bulk plants, not pulling from them. It says, listen, when people are charged the money to bring to our bulk plants, it's automatically gonna go to the cost of the fuel in the bulk plant. And when we pull it, it's gonna go to the consumer, period. When you charge more for something, you have to pass it on. Our smaller fuel deliverers don't have a huge margin to work with that they can eat 70 cents. Maybe in AmeriGas, because they're conglomerates. Maybe Dead River, they're fairly big, but AmeriGas is buying up companies right now. And you know what they're doing? They're saying, we don't want the customers. You keep the customers, do something with it, because we only want to have production, distribution, where they make their money. So now you have folks like Coda that are trying to take on customers. And what's happening is, like with Coda, speaking with the gentleman, he's a good guy. He's a smart man. Which he says, there's another thing coming, Mr. Woodman, is if I buy a diesel truck, I have to buy an electric truck. That's what's coming. When you purchase a diesel truck, then what's coming, this is like 2026, you have to buy an electric truck if you're going to purchase a diesel truck.
Yeah, that I haven't heard.
Well, this is something that then it's wonderful information, and he has to buy them, so he
Yeah.
knows.
Paul, we'd love to get a copy of that, first of
I
all.
will give you a copy of this.
That would be
but
really
Let me continue. So the chassis of a diesel truck is $170,000. Okay, and that's a bobtail. That's with the tank and the pump. The chassis of a truck that now they're mandated to purchase is $450,000, just the chassis, not even including the pump.
Where
So
did
that
you
is-
say goodbye?
So that is a huge expense to our small deliverers that will not be able to afford to do it. And if they do it, to be the only deliverers, because these big companies buying us up won't do it, the cost is going to go to us. On top of putting a 1,000-gallon tank on top of an unstable electric chassis is insane. You can't even put out an electric car. You have to watch it burn to go through the
Are
concrete.
these,
So Paul,
But
let's push
Paul, I
forward.
think we're gonna have to,
I am
share a little.
talking about, I have more information to share.
Very happy.
If you would like me to share the information, this is my concern. Coupled with this bill, coupled on top of H-289, my folks can't afford it. I can't afford it.
Right.
They cannot afford it.
If you're happy venting, that's fine, but if you're not providing any opportunity for response. You're providing data with no reference.
Okay, let's respond to what I said first.
And the very first thing you're saying, we already have the lowest emissions. You've given no source. That is not our information.
Yes.
So just because you've said it and you've read it somewhere does not mean it's true.
Okay, well, we'll give you that information.
We're per capita highest in New England, and we can share with you the Energy Action Network's report, which is a nonpartisan organization that does our energy analysis every year, and they update it every year, and it compares us to other states and particularly to New England. So we can give those to you. They just came out with their draft one, reflective on last year, but we can give you the one from this last year. It's the EAN.
Vermont are worse than the pollutants in Boston, Massachusetts, Connecticut, everything else. That's very hard to believe,
So let's.
very difficult to believe.
Let's
Let's push forward though.
Information, yeah. and
Spinning our
let's give
wheels,
some other
push
people
forward.
some Opportunities. Yes, I know. Yeah, it's getting a little.
But I'd love to see the document too.
We've got two more people who have questions and comments. Dan, do you want to, okay, we've got 4 people. Okay, Dan, why don't you come up here and start with us?
I'm Dan Jones. I thought I understood the process and now I don't. So I'm glad the parliamentarian is here. When the governor vetoed the Clean Heat Act, there was an issue of whether it would come back to the legislature in bill form, specifically in bill form. And the legislature, as I understood, didn't do that.
No, we did do that.
We did. We agreed with the governor. Very last minute, the governor asked us to have the whole issue reviewed again by the legislature before we acted on it.
So
And we did do that.
this cannot move forward without legislative action.
Yeah.
There's got to be there has to be some type of legislative action for any of this to move forward.
That's what the governor asked for. We compromised with him and agreed.
Yeah.
So there will be no action and it will come back and we will have an entire legislative review. And so when you ask, what can you do? You can read that report the minute it comes out from the Public Utilities Commission and give us feedback on it.
Yeah.
When it comes out, January 15th, read it and let us know how you feel. That's something you can do.
Is there a distinction between the rules coming from the PUC and being voted on by the legislature?
Yes,
And
yes.
I didn't even ask the question.
No, but I thought that was the question.
Is there a difference between the process? What I understand is that the rules will come from the PUC, proposed rules in January, and be voted on by the legislature. Is there a difference between that and being brought back in quote, build form, where it has to go back through committee and then be subjected to the whole process where the governor will then have the option of vetoing it?
Yes.
There is.
Yes, there is.
Okay, and what is the difference?
And the difference is so we have we have a rules committee, which is separate from our joint rules committee. And so John does not serve on it. That's just one thing I wanted to note. It's a group of senators and representatives along with the administration who work on rulemaking. And there's a lot of conversation about rulemaking at the federal level. It's a little different at the state level. So just wanted to point that out. We are not moving forward with rulemaking other than collecting data about fuel usage in our state. So there are rules coming back that we don't need to vote on, but are reviewed by our elected officials, and you can comment on that process. But the only rule that's actually happening is to require that our fossil fuel dealers provide data, just like your electric utility does. So there is a difference, and we are doing a little bit of both. But we are not moving forward with a program through rulemaking. And second part, I think, of your question feels like the undertone is that rulemaking would be a way to kind of sneak it into existence. That's not what anyone is doing or attempting to do. That would be disingenuous. So I appreciate you bringing up that concern. And I apologize for interrupting you earlier.
What the PUC is doing right now goes far beyond just collecting information. Aren't they supposed to prepare a set of rules as to how the clean heat standard work, and how, secondly, how the default delivery agent will be selected? Aren't those rules that it's in the process of developing right now?
We're asking them to, yeah, it's nuanced. We're asking them to play out what it would look like. But we're not asking them to do it because we know that it's never been done before. So it's kind of like coming up with a new game. It's coming up with a new market. So we're trying to draft that plan of what would it look like. We're also not the only state that's kind of in that, but just drafting something to kind of get an understanding of it doesn't mean you're doing it. If you've ever drafted any kind of plan, this isn't even at planning stage. This is at what would happen if we wanted to plan to do that? Like, that's where we are. And for us to meet our carbon emissions requirements, we are going to need to come up with a plan reasonably soon, because where we need to hit our targets for 2030, 2040, 2050, we have a short time frame. So we're asking them to think creatively and do it from that perspective, but we're not asking them to put it into rulemaking to be reviewed. And that's a great distinction as well.
What do you expect? They're supposed to issue a check back report in January of 2025. What do you expect that to consist of?
Well, we can go over all of the specifics that are in the bill, because we actually have, I can go to the section if you want. It'll take me a minute or two, but we do lay out directly verbatim what we are asking them to do. And I'm happy to go over that. We spend a considerable amount of time in committee wrestling with that question. Because it's hard, how do you come up with a system that supports equitably folks getting off of fossil fuels and not charging them too much? Yeah.
Specifics of what it says.
You are not?
I'm asking about
What do we expect?
the significance of what's there. I thought that they were supposed to be drafting rules that would be submitted to the legislature for the legislature's approval. Is that wrong?
But it's not wrong. It's that we are seeing draft rules if we were to want to write legislation.
What?
So if an individual legislature got the report, they could say, I like this section of the report. I don't like this section. I think this rule sounds good. We're going to put it in. If they wanted to individually do it next year. We aren't required, like the legislature doesn't have to consider this. Like rulemaking in the process you're describing goes through legislative rules, and legislative rules is required to do something up or down. But getting that kind of rulemaking draft is really common because we do a lot of things in government that don't actually need to be in law, but need to be like, we don't need to debate the nitty gritty administrative details of how like a program is facilitated, like through the Agency of Natural Resources. We don't need to know every nitty gritty detail, but someone needs to have a rule that falls within the value system that the legislature passes. So it is actually kind of common to do it in the way that we're.
So what is the path?
Can I just interject here?
Yeah.
I think that we should put some timelines on the questions and answers, because not to cut people off, but we're going to be here till midnight because we got.
Great question.
Yeah, they're great questions, but I think if there is something that requires the action of the full legislature, something that has something we pass where it says this has got to come back to the full legislature for approval. The only mechanism we have as a body to do that is either as a bill. We have to have something to vote on. So it either has to come to us as a bill or some type of a resolution before we can take it up on the floor. So to answer your question, if the requirement is for the full legislature to review it, it's got to come back in one of those forms. Otherwise, there's no mechanism.
And the report doesn't mean that they have to recommend the program to us. So we may get a report that says, we don't recommend this. Do you understand? So we don't recommend rulemaking of this type.
Yeah.
And I think actually the most likely scenario is we're going to get that. And then we're going to have some really tough
You're gonna
conversations.
get a report that says they don't recommend it.
I think that's what we are going to get.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a really hard reality for me to think about as someone who's worked really hard on this, but that I think may be what happens. That's how it works. But we may have to think of other strategies.
So they're not, don't expect that they'll recommend a set of rules based on the Act 18, what's in Act 18.
I think
What's that in January? They'll say scrap it.
they can and they may.
Well, is that what you expect?
That is, I don't want to guess. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, it's possible. I mean, if it's as bad as folks are describing, we will find out in the report. But I don't, my intuition tells me after looking at this path that it makes a lot of sense, but that doesn't mean I'm right. I'm open to new information.
We can't be speculating on what, I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's probably time to push forward. I
Yeah.
appreciate the
Well, numbers
question.
would be nice.
We've got,
Yeah.
we've got,
So H289 is not in existence. That's all we're saying. That's done. That's still,
It's passed.
we have.
it's so that is in existing. So that will be passed, gone.
It's gone. It's gone. She's saying
Yeah.
it's
It's
gone.
been passed. It's
With the end of the
It's been
legislature.
passed. That's what I'm saying. So it's passed. Now it's it's a bill.
In law.
Correct. In law. So the electrical bills will be starting off, will be raised.
So I feel like we need to move on. We've got so many people with questions or concerns.
And we're happy to come back.
It's a great set of
Yeah,
questions.
Dave,
We'll make it.
Nate.
But
Yeah, you've got.
We do,
Hi, everybody. Thank you all for coming.
you're my Ryan.
You're welcome.
My name is William Wakefield. I've been property for years. I'm glad you brought up the prison property. I started working there in 1989. So Diamond in the Rough property. And I sent emails to Peter Welch's office, Bernie Sanders, as requested by everybody, like say, go to your representatives. I haven't got any response back. I'd like to just throw this out since it's on Windsor on air and you guys are here. I'd like to see not just low income housing and affordable housing, because right now we're being taxed out of our affordable housing and retirement years. And we're going to build more affordable housing. We can't afford our own houses. We're going to make the best of it. I'd like to see state police barracks, courthouse, state office buildings, sheriff's department, training facility. They're using the property right now for state police training, I believe still. They were training canines for a long time inside the fence. So the state police already had a good idea for using it for that. I'm sure it'll get turned, it's a big property, turn into low income housing and all that, but I'd like to see jobs come to the town. Montpelier, Barry, all that keeps flooding. DMVs keep flooding. That property doesn't flood. It's a gold mine for future. So if we just build low income housing,
Sorry.
affordable housing and so forth up there, you lose out on that, the state owning the property. I'd like to see jobs first. The low income housing properties can share the parking lot with the state police barracks. Cuts down on crime. And then you have people who are actually going to come to town and use the facilities and stuff. A couple of the real quick, you don't even have to answer any of these questions. It's not that, but can we work on changing that, what that gentleman was talking about, the income level for getting incentives to put in heat pumps and stuff? Because I don't qualify. I went to Efficiency Vermont, didn't qualify for it. I was making too much money, but we got to go that direction.
Yeah.
I don't want this oil thing to happen either, but I'm so confused by what everybody's saying. I get it. I don't even want to go into that, but I already put heat pumps in part of my house and yeah, it saved us on some oil, but my electric bill skyrocketed. Some power companies are making money off of us. So they're making the money, but we're not paying money on oil, but we had a huge, but I tried to get through Efficiency Vermont solar panels to go along with my heat pumps. At a perfect spot, give me a solar panel as a package deal with the heat pumps. What do you mean? We don't do that. Of course not. Got to get the heat pumps connected to the power lines. The Green Mountain Power gets paid. put in if the heat pumps go along with a solar panel incentive thing that offsets your electric use for the heat pumps,
I know
people
it's-
might do that. And
I know, yes.
I mean, you guys
We
talk about
can't-
lowering the thing. If every
So-
house put in heat pumps, they put in solar panels.
So we can't, I love that point. I used to
great
work for
idea.
Efficiency Vermont. They can't do photovoltaic solar because of regulations that are.
I get it.
Right.
I talked to them.
But we do need to, I agree with you. We would actually love to move to an all fuels utility so that you don't have that kind of.
I'm just going to make statements. I'm not looking for answers right now. I just wanted to get it out there on the table that
Yeah, good
solar
idea.
panels need to be part of the heat pump, the offset, so your bills don't. I just assume keep oil myself and propane, but, Efficiency Vermont will give me a free EV charger if I buy an EV car for $50,000. So just put one in for nothing. The only people I see, I do a lot of jobs over in Woodstock, all these really wealthy houses and stuff, get furniture from them and stuff, and they're all getting bought out by out-of-state people. I watched a realtor come in with a check for $2.8 million. Here you go. They're not even living there, and they're not even planning on living, just not even gonna rent it or do anything. And it's gonna happen in Windsor too. So anyway, with that said, changing the income level so everybody can qualify for the incentives would be great.
Yeah, thanks.
The prison, I'd like to see it talked about. I mean, talk about hundreds and 100,000 jobs. If you put in all the courthouse, everything, one-stop shop, and then put in all your housing, low-income housing and everything else you want. That would be great. And then the last thing I have is, I had to travel south down by Boston and, through Maine and different things. I think I spent $17.50. I didn't keep track of all my receipts in tolls. Everywhere I went, I hit a toll, then another toll, and another toll, and another toll. And I came back to Vermont. And I'm getting past 80, 90 miles an hour by Massachusetts plates and Connecticut plates. They were flying by me and stuff. There are no tolls for them to pay coming into Vermont, but retired older people, now their oil bills are gonna go up. Our taxes just skyrocketed. So it's hard to afford things. But we're not tolling the out-of-state tourists that are coming in. What did they just say? $500 million for foliage, something dollar. That's a lot of tourists coming into the state.
Yeah, there were.
With all that said, there's ways of generating funds. It should just be talked about instead of just tax oil. I don't have a choice. I can't get rid of my oil, so I'm gonna have to pay that increase. You know, I don't want to sell my house, so I have to pay the thousands of dollars increase. So thank you all very much.
Thank
Appreciate you.
Great, you have something?
Thank you for coming. I know it's hard when you represent
Way more than.
people, but the fact of the matter is you guys are gonna get the shit. Sorry.
It's okay.
That's what it is.
Why we're here.
That's why they,
We are being taxed,
what's your name?
Nathan Heath.
Nathan.
Yeah, you have me on email already. I've talked to you before. It wasn't fun. So everyday average Vermonters are being taxed right out of here. And, you know, something's gotta give. I'd like to think that my son might grow up and raise his family in this town. It doesn't seem like it's gonna happen that way because just the way things have exploded and something's gotta give. You can't just keep raising taxes, raising taxes. You know, property tax, education, now fuel, everything. It's getting crazy. I've made the most money that I've ever made in my life, and I can't tell the difference just because of everything that's gone up in price. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating. We'll just leave it at that, but something's gonna give. And I don't know, but something's gonna give. You can't just keep going this way. So.
Thank you, Nate.
Appreciate
it.
Any other hands? Okay.
I'm glad that, Mrs. Clarkson talked about the.
You gotta introduce yourself.
Big cat, again, hi, Tom. The big thing about the prison farm is, we all got an opinion of what we think should be. I agree with the fact that it has to be an economic help to the town of Windsor. And, but from the state level, just throwing $300,000 at it every year is really foolish. And I walk around the fence and stuff. I don't see any preventive maintenance going on through these years, that they're just letting it deteriorate more and more and more as they're throwing the money, heating the places and doing all that. I wanted to tell Mr. Howe, he asked, what can we do? I say this every meeting, get involved, watch these meetings, read a paper. Don't just come when you get your tax bill, this is a process that goes on all the time. And vote. We vote for these budgets and then our taxes go up. Well, when you vote for the budget, you are saying you not only endorse what you vote for, but you understand what it's going to be. Lack of trust. You say, oh, you're doing all this stuff. Well, Windsor people are at the point where we don't trust you anymore. We had Act 46. Okay, we talked about merging. Windsor and West Windsor did not a merge mandated by the state. It did not save Windsor taxpayers a nickel. Matter of fact, our tax bills went up $600 on $100,000. And as you mentioned current use is funded by the education fund. Well, that's what I'm here to talk about, is current use, because current use started many decades ago to keep the land open. And fine, we are rural Vermont, we want to keep it open. Well, most of us people born here in Windsor can't even hunt anymore around here because the land is bought up by out-of-staters and they get current use, which then the law says they can post it. We're subsidizing the land and they don't even live here. So I've been saying this to Fish and Game, to legislators for a long time. Stop giving out-of-staters that aren't residents here the current use break. Take a look in the book, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars we, the people that are claiming our taxes are too high, are subsidizing the people like the guy who owns Detail out in Heartland there with all his trees that aren't even growing. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Can I just say a couple of things in response?
Yes, you
Tell me.
Just really quickly. I know, I'm
We
sorry.
have a meeting.
Regarding current use, that was one of the things that I asked our House Ways and Means Committee to take a look at when we realized that again, for those who haven't heard me say this already, I sounded the alarm first on the education fund on January 11th this year. And then it took until after crossover to get addressed. But one of the solutions that I had suggested was looking at current use. And the more that I looked into it and the history of it, it wasn't something that could be just thrown on. That was the problem with really all of they waited too long to address the problem. And then all of the solutions required more time and investigation than they left time to investigate. So, current use is much more complicated than I realized when I suggested it. But hopefully it'll come back this next upcoming biennium as it doesn't belong as part of, we should not. Heartland is a really good example. Heartland had two properties that were very expensive sales in the last couple of years. And those, the people who bought the properties immediately put them into current use, so they don't have to pay as many taxes, and we eat it. And it's not right. It needs to be looked at, but it needs to be looked at. We don't want to dissolve its purpose at the same time. We need to actually look at what it's meant to do and all that stuff. But hopefully it'll be one of the things that gets looked at. As far as the property tax, I think it's an elephant in the room. And one of the problems, there were so many different problems that compounded at once, but one of the problems was that in our district where we live, we had control over less than 20% of the budget. You know that, Dave, because you attended the budget meetings. One of the problems is that we have all of these, it's called state directed spending, or otherwise known as mandated spending. And we have all these things that have nothing to do with education that are in the education fund, which makes it one of the things that I really worry about is that when those elements rise, of course, it costs us more, but one of the things that they did this year was add a penalty for excess spending. And so we're here with about 15% of our control over about 15% of our budget. I mean, that's partly because we put our teachers on a 2 or 3 year contract. So we didn't have any control over, how much the teachers were going to get paid or whatnot. But all the rest of it, the healthcare that we talk about, when we hear the double digit rises in insurance, we know that that's going to trickle down to our taxes again. And with a excess spending threshold, as they're calling it, and they put it up at 18%. So that means that if we spend 118% of what we had this year in education, next year, we're going to get dinged for hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is, and we don't have any control over it. And so when we have, you have to think about how that trickles down. We have health insurance rising double digits again. How does that trickle down to ultimately how it comes out in our property taxes? And I'm not going to sit here and say that we don't have any control over it. We do. We try, and I take responsibility in the fact that I serve on the school board. I know the intricacies of what's really happening there. But it is also ultimately what happened this year was they waited too long to address it. And so all of the solutions, including the one that Governor Scott put forward, we don't know whether that would have been a good solution or not. He put it forward at the very end. We had no time to see how that would actually affect Vermonters. And it wouldn't be responsible to replace what we have, which is extremely complicated, labyrinthine, and extremely complicated. We can't just take, it has grown organically over the years. It has had thing after thing after thing added onto it, tweaked. We can't just replace it on the last day without taking testimony from all kinds of people and seeing what the true effect is going to be. And so we got into a time frame that wasn't reasonable, and all of the solutions that got piled in were ones that were very simple and simplified because we didn't have time to vet them properly. And I can't promise much but I will promise, because our family is also a family who had their taxes. We had in West Windsor, we had our reappraisal. We bought in a tax sale like 2 or 3 years ago. We bought in a tax sale a little piece of property that was adjacent to ours. We had our property reevaluated like everybody else, and our property doubled and our taxes doubled. And everybody, I too don't know how we're going to do it, but I can promise you that I will do everything that I am able to do to, and I think that,
Yeah, we all agree with that. Yeah.
I think I think I can't speak for you guys because you're the Senate.
I don't know, you
But-
speak so well, Elizabeth, feel free. to
But
speak.
but I can say that I'm in a good place to represent Windsor and
Yes.
West Windsor and Heartland at in the, in the House of Representatives for education and the education tax. And the fact that I don't serve on that committee actually is helpful in that respect. And so if you have any questions or ideas or suggestions, I'd love to work with people and get together. I've told a few Heartland residents that this is not about political party. It's about solving the problem and figuring out how to fix it. I really believe that part of the solution is getting a bunch of those things out of the education fund. I also have been attending all of the and that's I've been attending will continue to attend the Commission on the Future of Public Education in Vermont. I've been attending their commission meetings and all of their subcommittee meetings. And they're just getting started, but
I'm excited to hear what they.
we will also be working at the same time in the State House.
Yeah, I wanted to say, I really appreciate the comments, and hearing from constituents is important. We do read your messages, even if we don't have time to respond. As was mentioned earlier, we don't have any staff, so we're reading the messages ourselves. We don't have someone digesting it and giving it to us. And so it's really important to hear. And I keep seeing things on listservs, how Montpelier is not listening. That's not true. We are listening. We know Vermonters are struggling. I got the same shocking tax bill many of you did. I knew it was coming, but it was still a shock. But keep in mind it's really frustrating trying to serve you, realizing there's some things that I can't fix. I can't do anything. Very little can Vermont do to affect the national economy. We can do very little to affect the wild fluctuations in fossil fuel costs. We can't really do much to control inflation, very little. And that includes when you go into the grocery stores, that's really impacting Vermonters. I can't fix that. I can't fix the fact that building materials have gotten expensive. I can't fix the fact that healthcare keeps going through the roof. And all of these things are impacting the education fund. So it makes it hard to fix that. We look at the state budget. Much of the budget is obligated spending. We have very little discretionary spending that we can impact to lower taxes. I can't control, there's so many things. Out-of-staters coming in. I can't control your property values. I can't control the fact that out-of-staters want to come in and buy up our property. Very little things we can. So it's really frustrating, all the things that we can't address. Very little impact. And you can probably name some more that are frustrating that we just have no impact. So yes, we are hearing you. We're doing our best, or trying to do our best. We're trying to address these issues, but the costs keep going up, and it's not just taxes where the costs are going up. But we hear you, and we're struggling too.
I feel like sometimes it's just as easy as sometimes you're just gonna vote no. You know, not just, yeah, oh, yeah, okay.
Well, but the problem with voting no is if you're looking at the budget, trying to save money is what do you cut? Because they're going to be, you could probably name 100 things you'd like to see cut. And every single one of those things, there are very, very loud advocates for why it's so critically important to continue funding. It's not an easy job. I don't know why I do it sometimes.
Take a peek at the YouTube of the appropriations committees. Very interesting to hear every line in our budget, which grew very little actually this year. Every line represents a need that Vermonters have, and that is defended and articulated and supported in some capacity. It's astonishing, but it's true, and worth looking at, because it's humbling to know how many needs are out there that we're actually trying to support. And it's huge.
I think that's part of the problem, is the state doesn't need to support everybody's need. Sometimes you gotta support yourself.
Yeah.
And people get used to just sucking on the tip. That's what happens.
Gotta get you.
So,
A short one.
yeah, I know, we'll be short. We're having a good discussion.
Yes.
Folks, legislators, we're not expecting you to regulate the cost of oil. We know it is an erratic market. We don't know when it's going up. We don't know it's going down. We don't know what's going to happen with the cost of oil. What we're asking, especially 17% of my constituents that are already on assistance, and that number's going up. So there's no more for them to pull from, 17%. What we're asking is, please don't raise the cost through legislation. If they want to raise the cost because wherever it's coming from, however it is, I know you have no control over it, but please don't raise it through legislation. If I'm stuck with fossil fuel and I know it goes up, I guess that's what it is, and I'll do the best I can to get away. But please don't raise the cost of fuel like you did with energy, with electricity through legislation. That's all I'm asking. So I guess this one's gone. That's good. Clean and standard. Let's keep an eye on that, but please don't raise it through legislation. Close the airport. Close the roads at the airport. That'll take care of all the emissions for the rest.
So I think
Process it never.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you guys for showing up.
I want to
We'd
thank.
love to come back.
We'd love to come back.
And we're
Thank you so much.
happy to come back and happy to come back.
I will get you copies of what I have.
Yes, and if we take one of the copies.
Maybe have a somewhat infrequent meeting in the community, maybe not in the select board,
Yeah.
in the community.
So that we don't impact your work.
Well, no, that's not it. I just think
We are, John and I are planning.
These were given to me, if you want to check that out, so.
Read the article I just gave you, but my guest commentary on the tax situation, on the education tax and how we get to where we were. Because I address the costs and the challenges, and I encourage you to take a read of it because it's, I think, pretty comprehensive.
And John and I are planning to have 3 kind of informational discussions. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're happy to do.
We want to join at the
Just let us know.
library. We've heard that there's some great library events.
Yeah, we're gonna do, well, we said we were gonna do. We're planning to do one. We're gonna do one in each
We're planning
town.
to do 2, 1 in each town, so 6 total.
Fantastic.
And then 4 virtual ones.
Appreciate it, thank you.
I'm sad. We'll see you Saturday. Saturday. I hope to see you Saturday.
so sorry, I have a baby shower.
Okay.
So I was like,
You did such a good job.
This is a nice
Thank
event.
you.
it's for you.
Thank you.
Windsor on Air will be filming it.
They will not, but I think we may go live. So it'll be somewhere. Once we can get Mary trained behind the camera.
I'm sure. Well, my whole point was that it's much more complicated.
So,
Yeah.
you're done?
Yes, thank you.
You're done, we've had enough of us.
Thank you so much.
Meals, thank you, Saturday.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Tom, have fun.
Okay, I'd like us to move on to our next.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Okay,
Do it.
we need to consider the approval of a Dollar General liquor license.
Oh, they'll finally be able to sell liquor again.
Tom, are you on that?
This is, they were just late in getting their application. We did most of them, late spring, early summer. So nothing unusual about this. I'm sure it has something to do with their bankruptcy that they're going through. So, it's,
I thought they failed a sting.
there's nothing that I'm aware of,
Okay,
nor the police department.
good.
So
Okay,
then there's nothing to sign because of the new formatting from the state. So it's just a matter of making a motion to approve it or not. And
Make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All right, I vote aye.
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 Okay, so we've approved the liquor license for the dollar store. Another action item is to appoint appointees to the Conservation Committee, and I'm wondering if we have some people who are,
nothing has been submitted.
nothing has been submitted. Tom Dunn, did you?
Speak for a minute.
Yes,
I got a few things I just want to say real quick.
quick, yeah,
I'm tired, Kim, believe me, I've been asking for 4 o'clock.
okay.
Tom.
Tom Dunn here, part of the Conservation Commission, and just want to update. We want to have Lois Bromley Ellison, and I believe, did you send you anything?
I don't have
She's
it.
opposed to I don't know what happened. Her husband has COVID. So, but regardless,
So we'll need that to come.
correct,
Okay.
correct. We can wait, but she is in the commission and she's took over for Mike Quinn as he's resigned. And so she's our secretary now. And she's got all the information and she's right on board. And
We need to bless her.
correct,
Right,
correct,
just
correct.
like that.
But we had to do it. That's the way we had to do it to help everybody here. And I did bring up something about, we're gonna have on ours about no harassing kind of like what had happened. Somebody kept doing it. So it's not gonna happen anymore. You go see why, yeah. You'll talk to people. Anyway, I don't want to bring up too much more about that. But I wanted to really quickly, if I could make, to tell you what the mission of the Conservation Commission is, and this is what we're going to put into our thing: protecting and enhancing natural resources, educating the public, and advising the other boards, which I have been doing. And this is the duties of the Conservation Commission: to carry out the town's master plan to preserve, enhance, and maintain the natural and integration of built and natural settings. So I will get a hold of Judy Hayward. I was on the Paradise Park Commission last meeting, and I talked to them about what we were trying to do, and we're all trying to work towards working with this Tree City USA thing. And one of the things is, it's the easiest thing to do is the Arbor Day thing. We wanted to push that. That's the last Friday in April, and it's going to be fun. And I'm going to get some people from up at the college come down. And we're also working on, we're going to have at the Harvest Festival, Moon Festival, or whatever they call it now, Harvest Festival. We're going to have a booth down there, and some other, I'm going to try to get some other people down here for that too. And, so that's about it. I think that's everything. Oh, one more thing. And I would especially request if I could please have the town send a check to Roger Ellison, because he's fixing my computer because I can't afford a new one yet, and I need one desperately for my getting a hold of my people. It's easier than have my phone.
How much is it?
It's $50 to fix it. It's a junk computer, but I need $1,000 for the computer I want. So I would appreciate if you guys could do that, and that would be awesome. Because I have Wi-Fi, and I need the Wi-Fi to get a hold of my people, so I can inform you guys. But we're working together with all the commissions and such. But
So just a second, Tom, what do you think, Tom, about?
I'm requesting $50 go to Roger Ellison, so he can fix my computer, so I don't have to use my phone and to get a hold of people at the UVN extension, and the people I'm trying to get come down here for the Harvest Festival and for Arbor Day.
Well, let's see what Tom wants.
$50 is, no big sum of money for the town, but we have an awful lot of members on different boards, and we have never
Correct.
done anything like that. So it's not.
It's just a request,
what
and
happens.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Tom. We know how I am.
No, it's like, if the board wants to do it, that's okay with me. Just, whenever, it's never about the issue. It's about the precedent that gets set. So who's the next board of commission member that needs assistance with technology, and is the town okay with paying them on an as-needed basis?
Well, it's all in a benefit for Windsor anyway, so that's what I'm here for. That's why I spend a lot of my time doing things for Windsor, and almost too much time for myself. So, I think it's no big deal. If you can't do it, that's fine. I got to go home. I'm tired. Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Question for Mr. Marsh. Hey, Tom.
Yeah.
So, not Tom, Mr. Marsh. So there is sounds like there's a new mission statement, I will call it, that they're working on, and I believe that would be for the website to bring people in and what it does. Does the select board have to approve a mission statement prior to going online? And if so, we should probably receive it electronically so we can review it.
They are an advisory board, so they can't take any action without the select board doing it.
Okay.
The conservation What's up there now says the mission of the Windsor Conservation Commission is to inventory the natural resources of Windsor, preserve the community's natural resources through planning, promoting, and implementing strategies to assist the town planners and educate the public and encourage an ethic of natural resource stewardship. That's
you
the
remember
current
all
mission
that?
statement.
This one is basically the same thing. You can check it out, and it makes no difference either way. But I say it's more practical. This is what I have. It's more simple. It's more straight to the future. It's straight to the point. It's not all this extra added on stuff you don't need to. It's just saying what it is. We're stewards of. While we're at Paradise Park, is stewards of the park. We're stewards of all of them.
Just kick it over to us.
So anywho,
Okay.
My
all right.
suggestion
Thank
would
you,
be,
Gary.
my suggestion would be for the commission to kind of get on their feet, because it seems like this stuff doesn't matter, like in the big picture, but it does matter when you're starting to work on the town plan and that kind of stuff. So
Absolutely.
whatever is up there was crafted for a reason, and there would have to be some rationale as to why you would want to change it,
Absolutely.
and the board would have to understand.
Okay, well, we're working together with you guys, and I appreciate the help you've been doing, and all you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You've been all very helpful, and I'll be informed, and I will inform you.
Thank you,
All
Tom.
right, good night, everybody. Good night.
Okay, next discussion item is liaison reports. Do we have any liaison reports?
How you doing? Paul Woodman, liaison for Windsor Improvement Corporation. The video has been released. I'm reading this one. I apologize. You read my own. The video has been released. And Wick is doing some test digital marketing while preparing to engage with a firm to assist with the marketing plan for the digital advertising. So the video, I saw it. They did a fantastic job. It really illuminates Windsor. It's going to help us out a lot. So they did hard work with it. If you haven't seen the video, check it out on Wick's social media or at explorewindsorvt.com. explorewindsorvt.com. You can get a look at the video. They did a fantastic job. Wick did purchase a vehicle to go around town to do the watering of all the planting that our committee took care of on that with Donna and a few folks doing the planting for the downtown,
Like a
which is fantastic. The four-wheeler.
Side by side,
Yeah, it's a little side by side. Tom's idea, good idea. They did finally hire a downtown manager, which will assist with some other decision making. So we'll have an opportunity to meet and greet and talk and see what direction we're going with that. Other than that, I don't really have much more for the WIC liaison report. I'll keep it at that.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Tara, are there any?
No, I was on vacation. I missed the last meeting. I have no update.
And I feel like Tom Dunn adequately gave an update.
Yes.
The conservation.
Yeah, I
Committee.
went to that one too.
Yeah, I've been to that one, so. All right, we have no old business to review. We're looking at a town manager's report, so Tom?
Yeah, there's a couple of items. The rail yards project, earlier this week on Monday, the bids were due to do the brownfields remediation. They received, I believe, 4 bids. They're currently under review by the regional planning agency, but a couple of them did come in within the funds that have been allocated for the project. The regional planning agency allocated $400,000 to Windsor to do that work. So the expectation is that it should be completed, at least all the soils removed in the fall into very early winter, and then new grass and stuff get planted in the spring.
Any questions for Tom about that? Okay, how about an update on the Route 5 bridge inspection and replacement?
Yeah, this is something that I guess kind of slowly snuck up. You may be aware that they closed down one lane of the bridge a couple of weeks ago to do some inspections at a bucket that hangs underneath and looks at the undercarriage of the bridge. They'll be doing that again, I believe, in early October to do the other side. And this is all in anticipation of that bridge being replaced sometime in probably 27, 28. But there's a lot that has to go into the whole thing. It's been made clear to the state and supported by the state that the historic character, the concrete arch bridge that's underneath, you may notice that there used to be lighting on the bridge. anyway, that it should have some historic character to it. So I think it's going to be a real nice addition as you're coming into town. There will be some requirement for a town side of the match on this project, but it's not going to be funded by the town. That is a town-owned bridge.
Okay, questions? Okay. So Tom, do we have any orders to sign?
We do.
They're
Yeah, the
there?
green, they're supposed to be in that green folder.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay, so we can start on that. I guess next we will ask if there are any public comments for items not on the agenda.
I think we have to make a motion to sign the orders.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, well, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so we'll sign orders. Thank you for that reminder. Okay, public comments for items not on the agenda. Okay. As we sign orders, I think we could do the board member comments. Ryan, let's start at your end of the table.
Glad the representatives came. And thank you for everybody that showed up and put some effort and had some hard questions to ask and are standing up for yourselves. So appreciate that greatly.
I'm very thankful for the legislators and the senators that joined us tonight. I hope that we can continue this relationship and open communication. I think all in all, it's going to help everybody. Also, Windsor's gearing up for its 3rd annual Overdose Awareness Day. Our town recently has seen an increase in overdose deaths just in the last 2 weeks. It's been pretty devastating. And so this Saturday from 6 to 8 p.m., we will host Windsor's Overdose Awareness Day. It's going to be at the Windsor Common. If the weather stays looking the way it's looking right now, it's going to be in the upper ballroom of the Windsor Legion, which is right next door. So we're going to have some speakers, a resource fair, luminary bags, a candlelight vigil, free food from the Windsor Elks, and a beautiful remembrance banner. So again, that's 6 to 8 p.m. this Saturday here in Windsor.
Okay.
I will say, folks, I got elected to sit here at the table. We had some representatives come in and I'm grateful for them for showing up in the meeting, but I'm always going to continue to do my best to see what's coming down the pipe, see how it's going to be affected and try to, bring it to your attention. And when I see something that's coming down the pipe of legislation that's passed or to be passed, I will absolutely voice my opinion of what the cause and effect would be to my constituents. I see what's going on with how people are feeling right now and the emotional, the financial strain that people are under. And I give you my word that I will continue to advocate for you from this table here. And please give me any feedback if you ever want to communicate with me. But I tell you folks, I do my best. Sometimes I might be a little rough around the edges, but it's always out of thinking about my constituency in the best town in Vermont, which is Windsor. Thank you.
I would just echo that. I'm grateful for the, our legislators that show up tonight. They have a lot to say and we have a lot to say. And I think considering that, I think we did best we could there. I do hope they'll schedule some times to meet, not in select board meetings with folks. There was a successful meeting last spring, I believe, that I attended at the library and I thought that was a very conducive environment. Just some interaction. So. Okay, we are now going into executive session, so that means that it will just be the select board meeting to talk about an issue. So appreciate you guys coming.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.